Hi, Adele. How are you?
I'm great. Laurel, how are you?
Doing well today. So, I am so excited to be teaming up with you this month and sharing with our people our chats about self trust and how important it is. So, for those of you that are not really familiar with either one of us or both of us, I am Laurel Holland, and my uh, work message is Live Your Inner Power, and I help women feel courageous and live their power. And Adele is creating abundance with Adele. She's doing a lot of work in the area of abundance, and she's helping women feel confident and become prosperous. So we love our work with women, and we're here this month really to team up because what we've discovered is that first and foremost for ourselves, that we made big leaps in our business and in our personal lives when we developed self-trust. And so we know that that is a foundational component in terms of launching you into the life that you really want to be living, both business and personal wise. Right, Adele?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this month we've been focusing on self-trust, and we've been looking through the lens of kind of mind, body, spirit. And last week we had our talk, and we focused on the physical body and learning to trust the physical body. And we had some great info on that. So we'll have a link available. You can get in a link from either Adele or I if you're interested in that and you're not able to find it readily. We can share a link with you so you can see that. Today, we're focusing on emotions. So that next level of how we experience ourselves and how we can come to trust ourselves. Yes?
hmm
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a great journey. Yeah.
It is a great journey. So I know, Adele, before we jumped on the recording part of this experience, you were talking a little bit about, where you were emotionally and something that was coming up for you. And I feel like that's a great place to just go ahead and dive right in today, maybe. Hmm?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the whole thing about self-trust and your emotions is sometimes your emotions are not accurate.
Yeah.
They may come from a wounded place. They may come from a place that you kind of adapted yourself to, and they're not true for your bigger self, your infinite self. And in my case, I did not realize that I filter life through fear, through the filter of fear, the lens of fear. And I learned that by studying the Enneagram and learning my Enneatype and learning more about that. And so that was about 4 years ago, actually, when we met. That was coming to the surface. And when I realized that the emotion of fear did not have to be real, that I didn't have to trust that because it's such a strong emotion, but I could trust my self, my higher self, my wiser self. It really started to change things.
Mm.
And one of the things that helped a lot was the embodiment techniques that you and I both know from the Art of Feminine Presence. And you know, you do a lot of work with that yourself, with other tools. And learning to trust more than the fear was a big deal for me. And even now, sometimes I have to remind myself, I'm bigger than the fear.
Mm.
I'm bigger than the fear.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. And for anyone who's listening right now and feels kind of a little confused or not really sure about what does that mean, your bigger self, and how you can utilize that aspect to work with emotions, in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about spirit and energy and being able to trust that. And so come back and engage in that conversation. That will be a little bit more expansive in terms of, the guidance that you're talking about, Adele, because I think I know for me, that's been a huge part of feeling like I can take the steps that I want to take and trust along the way, is that I know they're coming from that higher self rather than, a completely emotional place. But today, let's kind of dive into, um, I know that the journey to trusting myself emotionally has been huge, because my my early days, I had a lot of sadness, and I had a lot of sadness from feeling powerless and in my younger days and not being able to express myself the way that I wanted to. And so part of my journey that really was transformative was simply learning about the different emotions and the kind of guidance they can give us. Being able to like label emotions just for what they are, that in and of itself allows us to feel a little more powerful. You know, if we're feeling like, oh, I'm feeling all this stuff and I don't know what it is, let's start naming it. Let's start giving it a name and understanding it a little bit more and developing what I guess would be a healthy relationship then with your emotion.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that you talked about when we were creating this was having an accepting relationship with them, not rejecting them, not trying to stonewall them, but accepting them. And I guess the corollary to that is not being swept away with them either.
Yes, yes. And I think, you know, being able to tease apart, you know, feeling is one thing and behavior is another thing. So when we feel overwhelmed by them, oftentimes we start to create behaviors that make us feel worse or can contribute to other feelings that aren't going to be useful in that situation. So part of it is being able to, just like you said, you know, accept the emotion, begin to slow down, and then, as I was saying, kind of look at it and name it for what it is and start to question, you know, where's that coming from, and what's my work here in terms of being able to move from feeling what I'm feeling to getting a clear guidance about how to move forward, right? Because I feel like that's the glitchy place, is that space in between, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And I think the other thing I'd like to say, since we work primarily with women, and a lot of women are very empathetic. They read other people's emotions. And sometimes the emotions you're feeling aren't yours.
Yes, yes. I had a huge aha when I was in therapy years ago, when my therapist was encouraging how to help me discern how I could feel what was mine and how I could feel what was someone else's, and to be able to tease away, you know, the difference between when it's my emotion that I'm feeling or when it's somebody else's and I'm just connecting with it. Right? And that's huge, because if we know that we're connecting with someone else's emotions, there's a way to really kind of allow the other person to have the integrity of their emotional experience and support them well, versus like getting pulled into their emotional space and into their emotional drama. Like, how do you, you know, help yourself by sitting back and allowing them to have it, but then become, you know, kind of a mirror, a support, a container to just help them hold their experience, right?
Yeah. I talk about it in terms of, because I was a therapist for a long time, and I realized I could get into the pit with someone who was suffering, or I could stand by on the edge and throw them a lifeline and say, "Here, let me help you get up on the solid land out of the pit."
Yeah.
And so I think some of us have the thought that, well, if I really care about somebody, I'm going to match their emotion. So if somebody's anxious, depressed, fearful, negative, whatever, matching is, you can do that to create rapport, but then you don't want to stay there. You want to start leading them as they're willing, because we do want to be understood and heard completely. And that's such a gift when you can do that for someone. Yeah. But to think you have to stay there with them is not, it's really not great for either one of you. I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, you know, as we continue to evolve and learn and grow our skill set, we find ways to navigate that territory of how to support people. And it's not going to happen in a minute. You know, I feel like if you know you're a rescuer, or you know you're somebody who kind of dives in there and gets stuck in places with people, just kind of like give yourself some time to grow some skills around that. You know, find a mentor, find a teacher, get some help, you know, read some books. You know, there's lots of ways to gain your skill set, but to know that there's the way that you're doing it, if it's not comfortable or it's not getting you the results that you want or getting you where you want to go, or really helping the other person, then you want to get some new skills.
Great point.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's I think that when we talk about emotions, one of the things that I would encourage everybody who's listening to work on is developing the skill of being able to observe your emotions, name them, and see if you can find some neutrality, some neutral space as you respond to them. Because part of what we're doing is we are labeling, judging, and one's good, one's bad, and that presents in and of itself all kinds of energetic issues. So what we were looking for is kind of that neutral space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So judgment, when you're judging something, you can't change it.
Right.
Because
Right.
you're like holding on really tight to it. So
Yes.
yeah, getting into the neutral. And that's what in a lot of meditation teaches, is like just watching them go by. And kind of like you're in a train station, you're just watching them go by, and it's so seductive to jump on the train. It's like, oh wait, I was in the train station. So that's one reason that meditation is so important. And I know when people hear that, they're like, roll their eyes and go, I know I should meditate, but it's hard for people. So one thing to do is just to give yourself 2 minutes, in the shower, in the bathroom, people with small children, with elderly parents, you don't have a lot of time to yourself, but 2 minutes just to breathe and to, and if you look up gently, like I am right now, that accesses a slower brainwave state. And so it will give you more insight and more connection to that embodied wisdom.
Yes. Yeah. That embodiment piece of being able to be present, fully present and relaxed in your body, to be able to use that tool as a way to work with your emotions. I think that's one of the reasons that the Art of Feminine Present has been so successful out there, and why our work with women is so potent, is that ability to help women come back and be fully present to their experience, and kind of slow it down and become that witness of it, because that in and of itself is transformational. We don't even really have to do much of anything else as we grow that skill, right? Have you found
that word witness is so important.
Yeah.
Good.
So let's see. Clearing old emotions, and freeing yourself from being reactive. To me, this is a huge piece of working with emotion. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to you and let you speak to that a little bit, and I'll chime in at the end, because I know that's a big part of, how you help people is with clearing work. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't overstate how important that is, because it's invisible. It's mostly in our subconscious mind. We may remember things that happened to us when we were children, or even, some people go to past lives. You may know what happened to your family. So the lineage, anything that's happened in your past, whether you believe in past lives or not, it's not important. If it's a story that you're telling yourself, you are going to react to it. If it's both positive and negative. So I had a client back in the day who was, I thought, just kind of average looking, but she thought she was hot stuff. And the men just flocked to her. I was like, that's a story she's telling herself. And it's very empowering for her, because she liked, she loved the attention. So, but if it's less beneficial than that, then, if you have any trauma around money, by trauma, I mean any past experiences that had a negative effect on you.
Like, I'll give one, if anybody's wondering. My parents always argued about money.
Yeah. So it set up this reaction within you. So, some people don't deal with money in that case. Some people obsess about money. Some people won't look at, they won't earn money. So, and that's just one aspect of being reactive. And the ways to, sorry, I just got a message from my computer, which is having a little bit of a time. the ways to deal with that, there are all sorts of modalities, and I have ones that I have learned and mastered over the last 20 something years. And you may have your own. I mean, some of the main ones that people use are emotional freedom technique, which is EFT tapping.
Love it.
I use dowsing, which is
love your dowsing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a kinesthetic kind of body movement, acknowledging and clearing the energy. Access consciousness, a lot of people are using. Body code. I mean, I could go on. Theta healing, hypnotherapy. There's so many. Body talk. What are your favorites?
EFT is my go-to because anybody can do it for themselves. And so I'd love to teach that and share that. And I find for me, it's been very powerful in terms of also even getting beyond the story part and really dealing with the emotions that are in my nervous system. And I find that it really helps me move from being stuck to feeling like I'm really got my energy moving, and then can get to that clearing space and start to rewrite my story, really, is what I'm doing.
Yes, that's a great way to say it.
Yeah. And I think that, with emotional content, part of what we are doing is rewriting our story with our emotional selves. My story of feeling sad for the first, 30 years of my life that I can remember, was my story for a really long time. That was a big part. Now it feels like an old story that even somebody else lived, because it's so long ago now. And my story is not about sadness anymore. It's about fulfillment and joy and love and goodness, So, I think that, we do want to rewrite our stories around the emotions that we've experienced and to feel empowered by emotions. I guess that's, for me, that's the big message that I really want everybody to walk away with today is you want to move to a place where you feel like you're starting to feel empowered by your emotions, not blocked by them or stuck or driving you into places where you really don't want to be.
Right. So when you say empowered, are you saying that's something else that we could talk about, is the spirals of emotion, the upward spirals and the downward spirals?
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah. So, being able to acknowledge when you're in a downward spiral, when your emotions are moving downward, and being able to reverse that's a very empowered place to be. One of the other empowered place to be was where I started today was being able to look at fear when it comes up and say, oh, here's my fear. I'm feeling really afraid right now. What could be going on? Is it about what's happening right now? Or does it feel like it's an old thing that I need to be working on clearing so I'm not stuck here in this place with today's situation, right?
Right. Or projecting into the future, which is what I do a lot.
Yes, right.
And I realized, it's not easy to remember, but I realized that most of what I fear doesn't ever happen. And if I can get out of the fear trough, if you will, and get to a higher place emotionally, then I can start creating from a different place.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons that I love EFT so much, Adele, is because once you practice that a little bit and you feel like you've got the hang of it, it's so easy to just pull it right in. When you're feeling fear or when you're feeling upset, be able to start to say, oh, even though I'm feeling this, right now I'm deeply and completely accept myself. And it starts to change the story.
Yes, it does.
Right in that moment, right? Yeah.
And it changes the neurology. Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I love Dr. Joe.
Yeah, he talks a lot about how the mind and the body work together and how quantum physics fits into that. And he writes really well for the layperson, not for a scientist. But it's in there, and you can, and I guess that's what I want to leave people with. You can change it. You do not have to be a prisoner to the big emotions that you have, to your past, to your reactions, to your future projections. You do not have to be a prisoner to that. You can change it.
Yeah.
And I think we're both evidence of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the challenge I would set out to people is looking at, what are the emotions that you struggle with? Take an inventory. Just take an inventory today. What are the emotions that you judge, that you don't like, that you struggle with? Begin to allow yourself to look at that. And then I think the other thing that often can be connected in there deeply with women is look at that and then look at relationship issues that feel really unfinished. Because sometimes those two things are woven together in here. And if we're willing to do some of that finishing work and closure work on some old stories, sometimes it's much easier to get that new relationship going with emotions.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for guiding this one. This was really juicy.
Yeah.
And next week, next Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we'll be back with self-trust and your thoughts.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one. And you know, we might be live, we might not. We'll see what we want to play with in between then, but you know we'll have a video for you for sure.
Yeah. So thanks so much. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.